Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Because it's gone. You only had one. Hope you made the most of it. We went apple picking yesterday with James, my wife, and Grandpa Gary. We picked apples. We had nice little apples. They're so cute. They're so good. That was a lot of fun. It was like an apple buffet. Speaking of an apple buffet, let's talk about how I got my start playing poker. I've had a lot of questions recently about, essentially, how do I grow a bankroll? How do I start from nothing? Well, for those who don't know, I started from nothing. I didn't have completely nothing. I had a $10 an hour job, which paid my, bills as a kid. I was going to college. Actually, I had two jobs. One at an airport and one at a comic book store. And I decided that poker was a lot of fun. So, what did I do? What does any rational human do? Well, they take some of their money and they put it into an online site. But before I did that, I actually studied a lot of poker. I read a few books, probably 8 or 10, on Limit Hold'em, because that was the only game that people played for significant money at the time. This was back in 2003. And I studied. I studied a lot. And I think that's how most people who want to have a good chance of success go about approaching things. They just don't hop in and start playing for huge stakes. I hopped in with $50, which, $50 was about half of a day's worth of work. So not chump change, but also not a significant amount of money. When you first start playing poker, do not feel like you have to risk a lot. A lot of people just want to treat these games as pure gambling games, and that is definitely a mistake. If you structure your approach to quote-unquote gambling games in a very regimented, disciplined manner, you're going to give yourself a lot of time to actually learn how to play that game. What a lot of people instead do is they put their $50 online and then decide, I'm just going to try to get rich. I'm going to put my $50 and I'm going to buy into a $50 game, try to turn it into $100 and see where it goes. I actually had someone send me a message today on Instagram where they said, essentially, every time I deposit money into a site, I put in some money and then I double it, but then I lose it. What's going on? Well, let's get real. In reality, most likely, what's happening is you are putting $50 in, you're gambling with all of it. Sometimes you double, sometimes you lose. When you double, you think you're doing great. And when you lose, you're like, oh, that sucked. And then when you double and then you lose it, you think that that's some sort of problem that's coming about from your strategy or something like that. But really, it's very likely just a bankroll concern. I wrote all about bankroll considerations at jonathanlittlepoker.com/bankroll. So anyway, what did I do? I put $50 online and I kept 100 bets for Limit Hold'em. That is actually rather aggressive bankroll management. Back in the day, we didn't necessarily know that. We thought 300 bets was a ton. It turns out you maybe need more like 500 or 1,000, especially as edges diminish. But I had a big edge back then because most people had not studied. So I took my $50 and I deposited it onto PartyPoker. PartyPoker, from what I understand, mostly due to Mike Sexton, decided to spend a lot of money on television ads. The World Poker Tour was just starting up. Also, the World Series of Poker blew up because of Chris Moneymaker. And PartyPoker decided to have catchy, funny ads on TV. And apparently that was just enough to get me to join their site. Also, the fact that every recreational player joined PartyPoker also gave me a reason to join their site. This is a deck of cards from 2003. It's old. That's an old box of cards. Anyway, I put my money on PartyPoker. PartyPoker was great because they had two things going for them, which every site needs. They need to have a lot of games at every stake, at every buy-in level, and they did have a lot of games. It was never hard to find a seat. And then they needed to have a slow progression up in stakes. You'll see some sites where they have games like 50 cent, 25 cent, 50 cent, $1, $2, $2, $5, $5, $10, $25, $50, $200, $400, right? That's not a nice, clean progression. PartyPoker had a lot of stakes along the way to where you could slowly grind up your bankroll. And this is now something that a lot of the online sites feature, but it was not something that they featured back then. PartyPoker made a lot of innovations that gave people like myself a chance to actually succeed. So I put $50 in, I grinded limit hold'em, always keeping at least 100 bets, usually more. I realized very quickly that you could go on 100 bet downswings, just because that's part of the game. And eventually I got up to 30-60 limit hold'em, which was the highest stake they had on the site. Back then, though, they only had 4 tables of 30-60, and I think the purpose of that was probably to try to make sure players didn't go broke. And as you make bigger and bigger games, it's easier for your regular players to find a way to lose all their money. And you don't really want your regular players to find a way to lose all their money to other very good players, because the very good players will take it and cash it out and you'll never see that again. And it will frustrate the other, decently good players and make them want to quit. So, they didn't have very many big games. I say big games, 30-60 is plenty big enough. But they did have a lot of 15-30 games. But I was trying to figure out, how do I make more dollars per hour? And what I did is I instead moved over to sit and goes. I realized that they had these sit and go tournaments where it was essentially 10 people would sit down at a table and you'd play a tournament. First place got half of the prize pool, second got 30% of the prize pool, third got 20% of the prize pool. Everyone else got nothing. And this was an interesting structure because very rarely do you see payouts like this anywhere except for exactly at a final table of a tournament. So I was watching the World Poker Tour on TV, and I sort of aspired to be there. I realized the players there, some of them were great, and some of them were not so great. And I thought that I definitely had more than a decent shot if I figured out a way to make it there. So it only made sense that I would learn to play final tables. Well, how do you play final tables? How do you learn to play final tables? You get a lot of experience. How do you get a lot of experience? Well, you make a lot of final tables. The problem with that is it's actually very hard to make a lot of final tables just because it's tough to make final tables. But when you do make it there, you want to make sure you have a lot of experience. Otherwise, you're not going to know what you're doing, right? So, the easiest way to get experience, in my mind, was to play sit and goes. So, I started off playing 4 sit and goes at a time. That was a big deal back then. You had to have 4 monitors. So we had a 4 monitor setup. I was, again, reinvesting most of my money that I won into studying, into coaching, into a better computer setup, etc. When I first started playing, I was playing on a little crappy computer in my parents' kitchen because that's all we had, right? Started $50 in a computer in my parents' kitchen. So anyway, we started playing sit and goes, and I jumped right into the $200 games, which was the highest stake game, which was probably a little bit aggressive, but I think it was fine. The games were very soft back then, and it was a very mathematical game. And I always did very well in things that were very structured and very rigid. And sit and goes are a very rigid, structured game in that often you're playing just shallow stacked, and you only have a few good options in each hand. And if you play well, you're going to do well enough. And if you play poorly, you're going to do quite poorly. So I played a lot of sit and goes. Eventually, I started doing well, and I decided I should probably move out of my parents' house. So I went about buying a condominium, because in my mind, that's what you were supposed to do. That's what everyone aspired to do. They tried to buy a house. That meant you had made it in life. So I figured, I'm 19 years old. I might as well go and buy a house and have made it. I want to have made it. So I did that. I don't exactly remember how the finances work, but I think I put down something like 30 or 40,000, and then I had something like 100,000 left in my bankroll. And then I promptly went on something like a 40K downswing, which was like, oh my god, this is brutal. So now I'm left with maybe 50,000 or so. I have this house payment I have to deal with, which wasn't much, but still it was an expense. I was not used to having any expenses. So I decided to go back to the $10 games, all the way to nearly the bottom, and I was going to win 100 buy-ins at each level. The 10s, 20s, 30s, 50s, 100s, and then back to 200s. So I set about grinding. I figured it would take me about a month to win about 100 buy-ins at each level, and it did. It maybe went a little bit faster than that, but I played about 3,000 games a month with, decent ROI, and I grinded it back up. It took time. It wasn't a lot of fun. I hear my baby yelling. Please forgive my baby yelling. I don't know what his deal is right now. So anyway, we grinded it up slowly but surely. And I think a lot of people don't have the discipline to sit there and just grind it. They want, again, to get rich. I could have tried to move up and play cash games where you can risk more money at a time, or I could have just continued playing the $200 games where I was now losing. But that's not what I did. I went back to playing small. I studied a lot. I hired a coach. I posted lots of hands on the internet forums and talked about them with my friends, and we continued moving up. One other... Should I go tell them to try to keep the baby quiet? You all let me know. Can you hear the baby yelling in the background? Family life now. I've done so well that I can have a baby. Anyway, one other key important point to this is that I never really cashed out a lot of money. I think a lot of people play poker in their mind to try to win money. They aspire to win money. I never really aspired to win money, though. I didn't really have a need for money, right? I was living at home with my parents, going to college, and I wasn't buying anything. I think a lot of people, they want to buy fancy watches and fancy shoes and fancy clothes and a fancy car, and I never really wanted any of that. And I guess that might just be a case of me naturally being content with situations, or maybe just not trying to impress people. I'm not really sure. But I think that's an issue that gives a lot of people problems. They want to live the high life and show how great they are. But for some reason, I never really had that desire. And I think it was very beneficial for me. So anyway, while all my friends who were winning at poker were buying cars and houses and shoes, I was just saving all my money. I didn't view it as saving it, though. It's not like I had a plan to save my money for something. It was just, I was just keeping score, right? I was just trying to run up my bankroll. So anyway, we got back up to the $200 games. They introduced the $500 games and the $1,000 games and the $2,000 games. They actually ran, I think, 3 $15,000 buy-in sit-and-goes, 2 of which were won by Gigabet, a guy named Daryl Dickin, who we'll talk about tomorrow or the next day, where we talk about my first World Poker Tour win. But the games were good. I never played any of the $15,000 games. I was not quite bankrolled for that. I was always very disciplined, by the way. I never played outside of my bankroll. I think that's something that also gets a lot of people in trouble, is they justify taking shots, which, there definitely are times where you should be taking shots intelligently. The problem is that a lot of people have problems moving down after they take a shot. Let's say they move up to the $500 sit-and-goes and think, well, now I'm a $500 sit-and-go player. Then they never move back down. You have to be willing to move back down, especially when things go poorly. Like I did. I moved all the way to the bottom when things went poorly, right? Because going broke would be detrimental. I guess a lot of people don't view going broke as detrimental. They hear people like, the old school gambler saying, yeah, I've been broke 50 times and I'd always get a loan or get back, and I'd get back on my feet. Like, well, why ever put yourself in that situation? Just try to not go broke in the first place. And all it really takes is discipline and not having a desire to win all of the money immediately. So I have a few questions. How long did it take to turn $50 into $300K? Took about 3 years. 3 years of solid grinding. By the time I was 18 to 21. Once I turned 19 or so, things were really starting to go well. I was winning maybe $15,000 a month, give or take. And, that's how I went about it. What's my opinion on a power number push system? I have no clue what that even is, so I do not know. Do I play any mixed games? I know how to play mixed games, but I do not play mixed games. We've discussed this in previous A Little Coffees. But basically, the people who do really well at mixed games are really good at mixed games. They've devoted their lives to them. I devoted my life to No Limit Hold'em. So why do I want to hop into their arena and compete with the best players in the world? Sure, it may be fun, it may be gambling, but at this point in my life, I don't have a whole lot of free time to just play. So I don't do that right now. The cup with Lipton's leaf tea. This here is green tea from David C. Just straight green tea. I don't like anything with too florally or anything like this. But I like green tea, white tea, oolong tea, etc., etc., etc. Were these higher stakes sit-and-goes turbos? They did not have turbos or non-turbos back then. So essentially they were pretty fast. I think they took something like 25 to 40 minutes. I don't really have that great of a memory, but I'll tell you, I played 3,000 a day, 16 tabling. So you could definitely play more. I guess you could play 32 in an hour, right? I put in about 10 hours each day. So you could play about 2 sets an hour. So that means that average game probably took 30 minutes or so. let's see. What do I think about sites that operate in an unregulated market in America? Well, they're clearly doing unregulated things, so you just keep that in mind. Let's see. You put both my small stakes cash in book and... Oh, wait. You have both of my books. Which should you read first? It depends on where you are in poker and in life. If you are already very good at poker, you probably want to start with the bigger book, Mastering. But if you are rather new to the game or just struggling to beat the small stakes game, start with the smaller ones. My smaller books, Strategies for Beating Small Stakes Poker Tournaments and Strategies for Beating Small Stakes Poker Cash Games, are very good to give you quick tips to make you, well, stop losing, right? So, what else happened at Party Poker? Well, eventually, I think I must have been 21 by now, so this must have been right around 2006. Party Poker decided to have a get-together for their biggest whales. I don't know if that's actually what they called us, but I was paying about $20,000 in rake a month. Or no, maybe it was $60,000. It was $60,000. I was paying about $60,000 in rake a month. At this point, I was playing maybe $4,200 sit and goes. Or sorry, $4,200 sit and goes each month, which gives about $15 in rake a game. 15 times 4,000 is that really 60,000? Yeah, $60,000 in rake. Think about the rake back for that. That rake back used to give about 33% back then. So they invited us to Vegas. We got to meet each other. We got to have a party. I got to meet the legend Mike Sexton. Oh, Mike Sexton. Where is that book? I later helped Mike Sexton's book get published with my publisher, D&B Poker. It's called Life's a Gamble. Check it out if you have not. It's a very good poker storybook. Today's going to be the noisy stream, apparently. They now started hammering above my head. But anyway, I got to meet Mike Sexton. I was there. I remember we went to Prime at Bellagio. It was very fun, very nice. We went out to a few little bars. They took us to shows. I went out there with my mom. We went to the Grand Canyon. It was a lot of fun. But anyway, I got to meet Mike Sexton, and he is every bit of a legend that you would think he is. So if you've not read this book, check it out. It's called Life's a Gamble. It's very good, very fun. Has lots of pictures. Let's see if I can find some pictures. Let's find some good ones. There's some Mike Sexton pictures. There's him doing gymnastics. There's him with all sorts of people. Anyway, it's a good book. It's lots of fun. Check it out. Life's a Gamble. But yeah, meeting Mike Sexton was great. You know, I'm actually going to Montreal in a week and a half to play the Party Poker tournament, World Poker Tour. Party Poker is still around, by the way, for those who were living under a rock. And they've been having a lot of great live tournament series. So I'm going to one in Montreal in about 2 weeks, and then another one in the Bahamas at Baha Mar, which is an amazing resort, in about 3 weeks. And I imagine Mike Sexton will be there. So if you want to meet me and Mike Sexton, go to Montreal and go to Baha Mar. But yeah, Party Poker is doing great. They're essentially taking over the live tournament circuit, slowly but surely. Party Poker has done a really good job of collaborating. Some companies try to do it all themselves, whereas others instead try to collaborate. I'm definitely a big fan of collaborating. I think that putting two heads together at a problem is better than one, and when you put a lot of heads together at a problem, you get it solved every time. And Party Poker seems to do a very, very good job at that. So anyway, I'm excited that they are branching into live poker and doing it very successfully. Also, the guarantees are huge. In Montreal, it's a $5 million guarantee tournament for a $5,000 tournament. And they're also having a WPT 500 that's going to have a boatload of people. I think they have like 6 day ones. Charkaran says the tournament is a $500 buy-in 2 days, right? I actually don't know the exact structure. I know that I arrive on the 28th, and that's the last day to play the 500. So I'll be there in that too. Go play and come say hi. There's a chance I may be buying everyone breakfast there, by the way. So if you're a member of pokercoaching.com and you're on my email list, or you're on my email list, stay tuned for that. We'll get info out there for you about that in the near future. So, yeah. Meet Mike Sexton. Mike Sexton's a lot of fun. Always go up, say hi. He's friendly. Don't be shy around pros, especially those who are actually out there in the public, who are ambassadors, right? I mean, his book is called Poker Ambassador, and he is Every bit of a poker ambassador. Do you have a preferred platform for your viewers? It doesn't really matter to me. I just want to let you watch this show wherever you want to watch it. That's why we have it on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Instagram. Doesn't make a difference to me. I just want you to enjoy it and have a good time. We have a hand for you. Okay, let's see. We have Pocket Jacks playing 35 big blinds deep. Early position makes it 3 big blinds. Loose passive player calls from the button. Call, raise, or go all in. If you don't go all in, how do you proceed if an overcard hits? Well, that's a very big question. Jamming's probably a hair big, but probably fine. I would just go all in. Yeah, given it's a loose aggressive player from early position, just jam. All right. Please explain why you are selling yourself for that trip. To keep variance low and to give my fans a sweat. I've learned that fans like a sweat, and it's not that hard for me to sell a few percentages. What are my thoughts of playing while sick? Probably you should not play while sick. Not only will you get yourself sicker, but you'll also get the other people at the table sick. Sometimes it is a little bit unavoidable, like say you're on day 3 of a tournament, right? Or day 2 of a tournament. You're obviously not quitting. So that's a bit lame, but try to take care of yourself. Don't just get sick as a dog and go play poker. Or if you have a trip planned, realize, it may be right to just stay home, especially if you're not thinking right and you're feeling bad. All right, let's see. I have another hand from Renus. Hero has 10s on the button, 3 people limp. Hero makes it $19. I guess we don't know what stakes we're playing, but that's fine. Looks like we're playing 1-2. Small blind folds, big blind re-raises to 50. Folds back to Hero, who only has $100 in front of him. Well, I don't see how you could possibly fold unless you know the big blind is a super net. But maybe big blind could be a super net, though. Jason says, I have improved your game. Well, good. I'm very, very glad to hear that you've improved your game. That's what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to make people who want to succeed at poker get better and have a chance to actually make significant money. Whenever I first started playing, you have to understand, there was not a whole lot of good content that was consolidated. There was a lot of good content scattered around the internet. Little nuggets were found in all of these books. But there was nowhere you could go to actually just get a good, solid poker education. And I try to provide that for all of you. Hopefully it works. And if you're not afraid to work and grind and take it slow, you can make it. Even today, I think a lot of people want to say in their minds or make an excuse that, the games are tougher, therefore you can't make it anymore. Poker's too tough. And it's not. I can go ahead and tell you it's not. I mean, I haven't played a ton online recently, but every time I play online, I seem to do decently well. Live poker, I mean, same story. I haven't played a lot of live poker this last year because I had a baby recently. But even then, I've done decently well. I had two final tables in 10Ks, right? Despite not playing a whole lot. And you just have to make sure you're always studying. I think a lot of people get in their minds that they can just goof off, just show up and play. And yeah, if you just show up and play and you don't study, you're not going to get any better. But I spend tons of time studying, and that's all you really have to do. Josh said he finished first yesterday in a small blind for $3,500. Good job. How can you work on patience in this game? I have a book called Positive Poker with Dr. Tricia Cardner. Check it out. How do you keep improving at poker if you can't play live or online in the short term? Well, everyone can play online. Don't act like you can't. Also, study a lot. Sign up to sites like pokercoaching.com where we have quizzes, right? It's like you're playing, but you're not really playing. Watch lots of training videos. Hire a coach, etc., etc. Let's see. William thinks that we're here to answer all his poker hands. All right, let's see. By the way, William, I have this thing called the Inner Circle at pokercoaching.com/inner circle where you, every 2 weeks, can call in and ask me your hands. That's what we do there. We get out Equilab and the Range Analyzer, and we go through all of these hands in real time, and we help all the students improve together. Anyway, we'll go through one more hand for you. Why not? You're playing, how many big blinds deep? Looks like 65 with ace-jack in the hijack. You raise to 2,800. Okay. Tight cutoff calls, maniac on the button calls, comes ace-jack X. Okay, you bet 6K. Definitely bet bigger on this board, given it's ace-jack 8, 2 spades. I would have bet closer to 10K. Cutoff folds. Button calls. Turns another 8. Check, check. Just keep value betting. There's no reason for you not to value bet. Queen of spades on the river. You check. He jams 34k. Call or fold. What's his range? How's he going to play? This is a very, very easy situation to analyze with the range analyzer in front of you. Not so easy just off the top of your head. I'm going to bet it's a fold, though. What's the rate for the inner circle? Go to pokercoaching.com/inner circle and check it out. I do not know the exact rate at the moment off the top of my head. Is poker coaching mobile friendly? It should definitely work on an iPad. So you're in Ethiopia. It's hard to play online from here. Yeah, I don't know about Ethiopia, so maybe you do have a legitimate excuse. Play with your friends. Find a few friends and just play. If you have a significant other, play with them. A lot of people have gotten very good just playing with their brother or sister. There are so many brother and sister, or brother, sister, whatever, tag teams in poker where they are both very, very good. They played a lot together as kids. They studied together, and they all improved together. What are good methods for studying coaches besides doing hand history reviews? I think hand history reviews are very, very beneficial because, you're figuring out exactly what you're doing wrong. I mean, that's one of the main things I do with my students is I have them bring me lots of hand histories where we go through their hand histories that they play online at sites like PartyPoker where you can download all the hand histories. And I go through and I find any spot that I think they're playing incorrectly. And from there, we figure out how to plug those leaks. But assuming you do not want to go through hands, I don't know why you would not want to go through hands, but assuming you don't want to go through hands, you can just talk about situations. You can talk about playing fundamentally sound strategies, etc., etc. Any PLO book recommendations? This one right here, PLO Quick Pro Manual. It's quite good. Good, in-depth, and I think it's a nice book. What about 2+2? What about 2+2? Oh, I was discussing how there's a lot of rubbish on the internet. Yeah, that's it. There you go. That's a good example of a site where there is some good information on there, but like 99.99% of the information will make you worse. And it takes a very discerning eye to know how to get the good information off of sites like that are just full of internet trolls, right? You're much better off going to a smaller forum where the people there are all actively trying to get good instead of trying to prove how good they are. I think that's a big issue with poker players who are struggling is they want to try to feel good about themselves. And the way they do that is by trying to say what they know. But if you're like going to a site and listening to losing poker players talk about poker, you're probably just going to stay a loser. Hate to break it to you. Anyway, let's see. What are tips for playing mega satellites? Well, you're often just trying to win the tournament, right? Are these the ones where they pay like one seat to 500 people? Or are these ones where they pay 1 in 10? It's very, very different, right? You need to know the structure of the game you're playing. I have a book, Excelling at No Limit Hold'em, that has a chapter by Bernard Lee in it on playing satellites. Poker coaching also works on your phone. Well, good. Would I ever do a bankroll challenge like Charlie Carroll? I did a bankroll challenge a long time ago. Way before anybody else was doing a bankroll challenge. Something funny I think a lot of people don't quite understand is that poker has been around longer than a year or two. I did a bankroll challenge, called it the Bankroll Builder Challenge, actually. I recorded every hand. I did this maybe, 6 or 8 or 10 years ago at this point. And my goal was to only play an hour a week. And I got bored after a while. I started with 300, which was going to be 30 buy-ins. And I got up to about 1,000. And it's like no one cared. It was lame. It was boring. And I was asking, how do I clean up things in my life that are boring to me and not beneficial? And that seemed like a really easy one to let go. So I did not, quote unquote, finish it. Like I said, we already started with 50 and turned it into 300K. No problem online. So who am I proving this to? Why am I trying to do this? You've only been playing for a year, so you missed mine, LOL. Yeah, it's very important that whenever you get into something, find people who you relate to and go back and study everything they do. Don't just study the last year. Don't just study the stuff that's current. Like whenever I get introduced to someone new, I've been getting into angel investing a lot thanks to this guy, Jason Calacanis. And he'll have people on his podcast, and I will think, wow, that person's really knows what they're doing. So what will I do? Well, I don't just read their most recent blog posts. I read all of their blog posts. I watch all of their videos. Some of them have 10 years worth of videos. And you'll get a very complete view of how people who do really well in the world see the world if you study everything they have going on. So, do that. But anyway, yes, I've been around for a while. You all may not know this. They actually banned me on Twitch for streaming poker. You may say, why would they do that? Well, gambling was not allowed on Twitch back then. I didn't know that. There was nothing clear in their terms and conditions. But I tried streaming about a year before Jason Somerville was streaming. And they banned me. Same thing with video blogs, right? Video blogs are taking off now because we have a lot of great video bloggers. I've been making video blogs for 10 years now, right? I'm an old man. Not a spring chicken anymore. When I was a psychology student, did I learn anything useful for poker? No, not at all. That was a waste of my time, honestly. The psychology that is involved with poker often is not discussed in the first year or two of psychology at universities. All right, you were card dead for a while. Is it best to adjust your range based on your image? Yeah, typically, if you have been running poorly and it looks to your opponents like you're a super nit, you should definitely attempt to get out of line. I actually have a video. I'm trying to recall exactly what it's called. I think it's called How to Thrive When Running Bad or something like that. You can look that up. Let's see. Louis Philippe says, what's a good resource to work on when to make, I guess, hero calls? I mean, this just comes from learning the game and learning a solid fundamental strategy, like we teach over at pokercoaching.com. We have a lot of homework webinars where we'll go through a spot. Like one of the most recent ones actually had a situation where you would have two pair in your range some portion of the time, bottom two pair, and it would get counterfeited on the river. And it would go from a very, very good hand to now a marginal bluff catcher. You just have to fold it on the river in that spot. Because your range is too strong, right? You have better hands in your range at that point to where that hand no longer needs to be called. But it's definitely important, in my opinion, to learn how to play fundamentally sound and then adjust from there to exploit whatever the weak players are doing incorrectly. Bankroll challenge can be good advertising. Yeah, so can also using my time wisely. I mean, you have to understand, to build a bankroll takes a lot of time, even if you're a very good player. So, do I want to spend my time playing small stakes, no limit hold'em on the internet? And the answer is just no. That's not what I want to do with my time. In the past, when I did not have a whole lot going on, sure, why not? But now I have a family. Now I have a poker coaching business. And you may say, well, it's good advertising. So is stuff like this, and this is way more fun and way more useful for everyone. And some things you just don't need in your life. It's very important. One thing I've learned, as I have progressed in life, is that when you have nothing going on in your life, you have to say yes to basically everything that comes along. Because you have nothing else going on. But as you progress a little bit further in life, you start having things going on, you have to start learning to say no to things. My baby's crying right now again. What's his deal? Below Above says, make hero calls. Jonathan Little doesn't fold, so they're mostly all heroic. Yes, Below Above loves to try to bluff me, and therefore I always call. That really is the secret. If someone likes to bluff, and you know they're just playing wide ranges, which means they rely on you bluffing, how do you exploit someone who relies on bluffing to show a profit? Well, you just don't fold anything. The cool thing is most people in tournaments fold way too much. 99% of them fold way too much because they are deathly afraid of going broke in tournaments. But I've always had the mindset of rebuy and play the next one. Doesn't make a difference. So yes, Below Above, I'm never folding to you. Keep that in mind next time. It is kind of an interesting concept, though. As I have gotten older and have a family and I don't get to play nearly as much poker, that mindset of, oh, I really don't want to go broke because I don't get to play again until a month from now has started to creep in a little bit. But I keep beating it down. And if anything, I have determined to play even more maniacal and more aggressive because that's just good poker. If you look at a lot of the players who start off their careers winning very heavily, like I did, and then they slow down a bit, well, what's happened? Either, variance has caught up, which is perfectly fine and normal, or maybe they changed their game. Maybe they're now going into protection mode of their bankroll instead of aggressively trying to accumulate mode. But I think aggressively trying to accumulate mode is often ideal. Especially, as Below Above has figured out, people fold way too much. So, if they fold way too much, you should be running lots of bluffs, and you can't be afraid. When you run lots of bluffs, sometimes you're going to go broke, and that's A-okay. And especially now that tournaments have more and more and more players. Like back when I was doing quite well, the biggest tournaments had 800 players. Smaller ones had 200 or 300. You don't have to do anything too insane to win a 200-person tournament. Whereas whenever you are playing a 1,500-person tournament, you actually do have to be quite aggressive. You have to accumulate all the chips. It's hard to get 1,500 starting stacks, right? So, keep that in mind. Can you discuss bankroll versus lifestyle? I'm not exactly sure what that means. Keep your expenses cheap. That's the secret to all bankroll building, is don't spend your money. Do we have a specific system for taking notes? JonathanLittlePoker.com/notes. Do I meditate? Rarely. Let's see. If your image is super nitty, try to get out of line. Yeah, definitely. If people think you are a tight player, get well out of line. If they think that you literally never make hero calls, for example, you should be hero calling a ton. If they think you call every time on the river, you should be folding a ton. This is where sometimes you'll find yourself in leveling scenarios where people like Below Above realize I call every time, and I don't know if they're going to stop bluffing or not. And sometimes you adjust prematurely. You have to be very careful. I think a lot of the best players adjust very quickly to whatever is going on, right? And the problem is that you may adjust ahead of time. I think a lot of the best players adjust right ahead of time at the exact right spot in time, and that results in them just crushing their opponents. But if you adjust ahead of time and your opponent just doesn't adjust, or you adjust to something that's never happening or not even happening, maybe you think your opponent's bluffing too much, but in reality they're just saying they're playing good cards, they just happen to have a few obvious bluff spots against you. Well, now you're going to be adjusting from a strong, fundamentally sound strategy, and you're going to get crushed. So it's very, very difficult to know when to adjust. But yeah, that is, it's fun. Which bankroll management app do I recommend? I actually don't use one. I use Excel. Excel, nothing fancy. I should meditate. This, you have to understand. I've attempted meditating about 20 times, and I thoroughly do not enjoy it. I don't actually think it's that beneficial for me, and it's important to understand that in life, everything is not going to be beneficial for everyone else. And also, as they say, if you don't have time to meditate 10 minutes, well, you should be meditating an hour. It is an interesting thing. There are plenty of things in life that I want to do, and given infinite time, I would definitely do them. We discussed this the other day, right? I want to be in the gym more, but I'm doing a little coffee in the morning. I'd rather be helping the 1,000 of you that I know are watching this, and maybe that makes me miss the gym a few times a week. I have work to do. Maybe I would rather write a book for you all than meditate for some amount of time for myself. This again says, get the Headspace app. I have the Headspace app. I promise you, I try many, many, many things. And I have done many, many, many things. And D. Nelson says, don't you want to build your frontal cortex? There are more ways to build your frontal cortex than exactly sitting and doing nothing. It's important to understand that everything is not right for everyone. And trying to tell people what is right for them is not necessarily the best way to get them to go about doing these things. Like in poker, for example, there are 3 types of game players. They're the players who want to socialize and have fun, players who want to push the boundaries of the game, and then players who want to win. And who am I to say that the people who want to socialize are doing it incorrectly? In reality, they're doing it perfectly fine, right? They're getting exactly what they want out of the game. And they're going to lose a lot of money, but they don't care about that. If they cared about that, they would be the players who actually want to win. And everything is not for everyone. Coffee says he finds that reading is more beneficial than meditation for sure. I mean, again, whatever works for you. Will I write another book? I'm currently working on 2 of them. All right, well, Let's see. Seems like Brandon Adams is crushing daily fantasy sports. Where did he learn to be so good? Brandon Adams is a genius. He has a book, something about life skills for degenerates. I found that actually very beneficial. Discussing going through periods of, like high motivation and low motivation, and understand sometimes you're going to be lacking motivation and sometimes you're going to have very high motivation. That was actually something that spoke to me because I have a problem where I just always try to grind hard and get stuff done. But sometimes you really don't want to do it. And if you can figure out ways to actively make sure you're doing what you want to be doing, things are going to go way, way better for you in life. So that's something I learned from Brandon Adams. Funny enough, we were both from the same town, but he was just a little bit older than me. I think I left before he came back or something like that. I'm ever going to play in a high roll series on Poker Go. Depends on which one. You have to understand, I play poker to try to make money at the end of the day. And if it's me and a bunch of other world-class pros, who's making money? I have an article. It's called The Bankroll Bible, Electric Wires. Maybe you should read it. Check it out at jonathanlittlepoker.com/bankroll, and it'll explain why I'm probably less likely than most other pros to attempt to go play any sort of super high roller series. That said, like in Montreal and in Baja Mar, they're having a 10K and a 25K that have, well, the 25K is a 10 million guarantee. I'm definitely going to be in that because it's going to be soft and it's going to be fun and it's going to be good. It's going to be a lot of value. What's the Brandon Adams book called? I don't recall off the top of my head and I don't have it on my bookshelf, but it is something about life skills for degenerates. Just look up Brandon Adams, Degenerates, on Amazon, and I'm sure it'll come right up. It's a tiny book, but it is beneficial. But yeah, how did Brandon Adams crush daily fantasy sports? Study. That's how you crush everything. All of these mathematical games, study and experiment. Study and experiment. Study and experiment. Find people who are already crushing it. Study from them. That's how you get good at everything. Just experimenting and just playing will get you somewhere, but it won't get you as far as studying and experimenting will get you. So that's going to be it for today. Thanks for being here. Tomorrow we're going to discuss my experience winning my first World Poker Tour tournament. But we'll get to that tomorrow. Again, to sum up this stream though, you need to take things slow. Do not think that you have to get rich immediately. Don't think you have to gamble even for a lot of money. You need to, assuming you actually want to have a good chance of building a significant bankroll from poker, deposit a small amount, study a lot, play a lot in games that you can beat, put your head down and work. Don't spend all of your money. That book is called Personal Organization for Degenerates. There you go. All right, have a good day. I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Bye.